Hey there. Have you ever felt like an invisible weight is holding you back from living the life you thought you were consciously intending for yourself? Or why do certain patterns keep showing up in your life and you're like, I thought I had these resolved. What's going on here? Why can't I resolve these? Despite your best efforts to break free from it all. Trust me, I've been there, done that for decades now. But what if I were to tell you there's a way to release all of this stuff and these unresolved things and these hidden patterns that you thought you could get at and experience a newfound sense of freedom? Well, I invite you to join us today as we delve into the fascinating world of trapped emotions and learn how something called the Emotion Code by Dr. Bradley Nelson can help you release these emotional blocks, paving the way for significant personal growth, serious transformation, and shifts in your life. And yes, I said there is an us today. Usually it's just me, but there's an us today. And we have a special guest, Linda Armstrong, who's a certified emotion code practitioner who will illuminate this transformative healing modality or shifting yourself in the realms of mind, body, spirit, health, whatever it may be. And today's no exception. So let's get started with the emotion code and our special guest, Linda Armstrong. Okay, so I haven't had any guests on the podcast or the video cast for a long time, but this is such an interesting topic. I wanted to invite in my good friend, who's also a certified emotion code practitioner, Miss Linda Armstrong.
Hello.
And hi, Linda. Thank you for joining us today. And I got to tell you, when I have two other videos about the emotion code. And in the podcast, which YouTube videos would not have, video viewers would not have seen or heard, I talked about the consciousness calibrations of the emotion code, which is significant. And it's the Emotion Code book. And Linda, can you hold up the book for us so that everyone can see the Emotion Code book by Dr. Bradley Nelson? And we'll have links to everything that we mentioned here today below the video and the podcast. So I belong to a group called consciousnesscalibrations.com, and the book, The Emotion Code, came across my radar, and I'd already known who Dr. Bradley was because I'm a partner with the Shift Network, and they're featuring his teachings of the Emotion Code now. So I'm like, oh, let's check out. And when I read the consciousness of the Emotion Code calibrates at 370, that may be meaningless to many of you, but to me, as a consciousness teacher, student of consciousness, I'm like, whoa, that's huge, considering most of the planet is below 200. So anything above 200 is like, yes. And the emotion code at 370, which is in the ballpark of healthy, the energy of healthy is 360 on the map of consciousness. So that's significant. I'm like, you know what? This is worth considering. And I mentioned I asked the questions to all of you at the beginning, like, are you struggling with this? You thought you cleared all this stuff? Well, I'm like, when I found out about the emotion code, I'm like, I got to do something about this. Now, so Linda, why don't you, and then I told Linda, because she's an energy healer, anyway, I'm like, honey, you got to check this out. She immediately went and got certified in the emotion code, the body code. She's been practicing like a fiend, and we've done some work together. So we have a lot of good stuff to share today. Case studies we want to share. We're going to talk about the heart wall in another video. We're going to talk about the whole notion of inherited garbage. This is huge. And then Linda's going to do some demos on all of this. So those will be separate videos so we don't bog you. You can just go where you want to go. So Linda, first why don't you just tell us briefly what the emotion code is now that you're a certified practitioner?
Well, the emotion code is a gift from God that was ultimately given to Dr. Bradley Nelson as he went through his life and through experiences he had through being healed energetically, not through the traditional way. He was a chiropractor and he was working on people and he was doing kinesiology, muscle testing with the body to figure out what was wrong and what needed to be adjusted. But as he was doing all of this, he started to receive information about how things might connect differently within the body. And what he's found was that he's discovered that there are emotions that can get trapped in your body. So a trapped emotion is like a fistful of energy that's just lodged places within your body, right? And what they do is they cause imbalances. So in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, everything, it's all connected, it all works together. So these trapped emotions can block that flow of energy for how you can naturally, I mean, we're naturally born to be abundant and healthy, and our bodies know how to heal themselves. So in his discovery, by doing the work he was doing, he received information just by speaking to, in his words, the Father. He would just ask questions and he would receive answers, and he would work on this with people. So it just developed into this whole thing where he started to understand and realize that there are particular emotions that would cause particular things to go wrong in the body. And a lot of these emotions, if you look at the emotion code chart, and I'll pull one up in a second, they're connected to different aspects, different parts of the body. So
that's true in acupuncture too, Linda. I wonder if it's like each emotion is connected to like a liver meridian as an example, or right?
Yeah,
different types of emotions go through different meridians into different organs.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what Louise Hay spoke about in her book, You Can Heal Your Life. She was talking about the same thing.
And not to get into body code yet, but these trapped emotions, think of just like balls of energy that are standing in the way, will put things out of whack, right? They would call them imbalances, or some kind of, something that is off within the body. And when you clear these energies, then the systems can flow the way they were intended. And so your body can heal itself without anything blocking its way. I don't know if I said too much or too little on that.
No, that's good. So I do have some interesting, I think we should touch on the basics of the emotion code. And the book teaches you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just going to grab the magnet so I can show it. And I don't know why I didn't have it on the desk with me, but I have it here. Let me just get that. Right. Okay, so we'll talk about the magnet later, but these are all the emotions in the emotion code. And on this side here, it tells you what parts of the body that these emotions affect. So it all ties.
Just give an example of one, like what affects the heart, what emotions, as an example.
Okay, so when we go to the heart, so there's 2 rows, and there's 2 columns and 6 rows. So the first column is heart or small intestine, right? And emotions could be abandonment, betrayal, forlorn, lost, unreceived, effort unreceived, heartache, insecurity, overjoy, vulnerability. So those are emotions that would be, directly tied into those aspects, affect those areas. Yeah.
Okay. So what the emotion code does essentially is identify what's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so maybe just take us through a process, which we're going to do. We're going to do a sample in another video, but just for those listening, I mean, the book tells you how to do this as well. You can do this for yourself. But let's say I came to you, Linda, with a problem, an emotionally related problem, or even just, doesn't even have to be emotional. It could just be a situation, right?
Be anything. Something not going right in your life.
Right.
Like we'll do a demo on, finances or something like that. So if you're constantly putting all the effort in and doing things right, but you're not getting the results you want, well, there could be trapped emotions standing in your way. So I would connect to your energy. I muscle test with these fingers here, and we'll locate through the chart what emotion might be standing in the way that has to do with the specific issue that we're working on. And there could be many, and we could even ask how many emotions are connected to this. We'll get a number, and then we'll
Right.
go through them and find them. And there could be, when we find an emotion, I don't know how deep we want to go into, but might as well, because it's what's coming up. Say we find this emotion of failure. You may need to know, see, because your subconscious mind is like a supercomputer, okay? It knows everything about you, everything. It remembers everything. It stores all the information. Some of that it's all good stuff, but some of it's blocking it. It's blocking you because it's created these trapped emotions and these energy blockages throughout wherever they're stored in your body. So I kind of lost my track there.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just
So it's failure, right? So you may need to know what this is about, or you may not. So your subconscious mind, that's why I was going there, that supercomputer knows everything you need to know. Now, sometimes you need to consciously know why this occurred, where this happened. So we would decode what age you might have been because sometimes it comes to you. So it becomes a very intuitive process, right? Some people who do a lot of this work, things will just come up and they'll know exactly what this is. I know exactly what that emotion of failure is about. But you could have many emotions of failure for many different reasons, right? So we're picking up a specific emotion of failure. We could find out how old you were when this happened, what the event was when this happened. If anything more you need to know, I will not be able to clear it until we release all the information that supercomputer wants you to consciously know about. And so once you know these things, you may need to know where is it trapped in your body. You don't have to know all of this, but you may need to know. So we'll find all the information before we can clear this emotion. We'll also have to ask if there's anything associated with it. You can ask that as well. And there might be something associated with it that you're going to want to find out and clear. But most of the time, you just clear that emotion. And a lot of times it's very quick because you may not have to know the details.
Yeah.
I just want to stress, it doesn't matter whether you know the details or not. It's your subconscious mind that's leading the way. And I will do whatever your subconscious mind is leading me to do. Unless, I'll just add this, you're curious. Unless you're curious and you want to know. I want to know what happened. Okay, fine. Then let's test through it. We'll decode it. We'll find out, what came about it. And the interesting thing with that too is when I'm working with people, a lot of times they're like, no, I don't know. I can't think of anything. But then boom, boom, I ask a few questions. Here comes this thing. It comes right up to their face. Oh my God, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Didn't even know you're holding energy that is blocking you in some way from moving forward on your path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to address some basics about this so people understand more fully how significant this process is in consciousness, because that's what I teach. It's like, you want to know the truth of anything, like this is not my opinion or judgment. It's a calibration of energy. So it's like, you put it into context, you're like, okay, I can go with that. It's above 200. It's worthwhile. So muscle testing, it's also known as applied kinesiology. Not everyone knows about it. And a lot of people could think it's some type of woo-woo, like, what is the what are you doing? Like, what is Linda doing with, what's this? What's that? Right. there's many different forms to muscle test, many ways to muscle test. And I'll share a link to that because the consciousness calibrations community tested the energy of each type of test so that it's positively oriented or whatever. So let's put, first of all, applied kinesiology into context. It's been around since the 70s, I believe. That sound right, Linda? Applied kinesiology.
I think so.
It's the science. It calibrates at 430 on the map of consciousness. It's positively oriented, constructive, and you can trust the energy there. It's high vibe, right? And when you understand that most of the world calibrates under 200, 430 is huge to use that in your daily life. The emotion code at 370 is huge to use in your daily life relative to all this garbage that isn't true running on inside of that you're not aware of. So muscle testing, applied kinesiology, the same thing, right? And there's many ways to muscle test. And Dr. Bradley Nelson has a lot of videos on it as well on YouTube. So you can see it in action. And it does take some practice. And I would not, even though I'm a teacher of consciousness and everything, I won't do it because I can feel my lesser part of me keeps getting in the way. Like, no, I can't do that. That's why I hired someone when I discovered the emotion code. I'm like, I'm not going to do this on my own because I know I keep getting in my way. So I hired someone before I told Linda to clear my heart wall. And that will be a whole other session. We're going to talk about the heart wall. So I wanted to put this into context that it's freaking powerful what's going on here. And you got to get out of your way, you know. So that brings the topic, Linda, of something that Linda and I worked on this week that was interesting, is you got to make sure you got beliefs out of the way before you even get into this. I that would be my feeling about it. Linda, what have you found? I mean, that video you shared about or whoever you were listening to, the podcast about people resistant to healing. Like, tell us about that. And unconscious beliefs or conscious ones that says this is all baloney. How can you speak to that?
My feeling is that it's all beliefs of some sort that are either propelling you forward and helping you or holding you back because they're not supportive beliefs. So let's see, what can we say? So beliefs are always going to be there. Even when you're doing emotion code and you're getting rid of all of this stuff, there's always going to be some sort of a belief or some way of being or some kind of program. We can call it a program more than just a belief, because there's so many different aspects to that energy that is running in there. So I'm getting, what was your question there? Because I've got like 5 different things going on in my head right now about beliefs.
So the first one is my recommendation. Well, let's talk about it. I've been working with Linda now. Let me just share. I did 5 sessions of the emotion code with a practitioner I found online before Linda knew anything about this. Huge shift and light illumination when we did this. And then I started working with Linda, and we've been working together probably, I don't know, a couple of months now, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like her guinea pig because she needed one. And we worked together anyway. So I'm like, all right, but my experience has been that I will have like 2 or 3 off days where I'm like friggin' processing energy out. I'm frustrated and angry and resistant for sure. And then Linda came and said, oh, I just heard this podcast about resistance to healing. So tell us about that first, Linda.
Well, actually, for you specifically,
yeah, sure. Because I mean,
I'm saying for you specifically, it was not resistance to healing, but it was it is resistance in the form of having extreme processing symptoms.
Oh, okay.
Right? So it's just a little bit different. Okay. Just like with beliefs, there's a million things I could say about it. Right. So
yes.
Yeah. So the trapped energy is not always just some kind of belief you have, which was probably formed out of some experience you had where this energy was trapped. But so there's always resistance. Otherwise that's why you're not getting where you need to go. So we can find trapped emotions and clear that resistance. You can uncover beliefs through different modalities, but I'm finding that this is the one, because I've done many other modalities and I see nothing that has given the results that both emotion code and body code are doing. Right.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting to point out, Linda. You've been doing this for how many years have you been a healer?
So it's probably 12 years now that I'm doing this. Yeah.
And you've had many different types of modalities you work with.
Yeah. And the thing with the belief, so that's maybe why I was going off on beliefs a little bit before, is because you can work with beliefs and clear beliefs. But I'm starting to believe that possibly when you don't clear like the trapped emotions connected to those, you're just formulating those beliefs in another way because that energy is still there. and bringing it something back to be seen a certain way, which then forms this new belief, possibly, right? So clearing the trapped emotions. And actually, Dr. Bradley Nelson is coming up with something called the belief code, where he's going to go deeper into this stuff with beliefs.
Okay.
And I cannot wait for that, right? Because it's built into emotion code, body code, it's all there. But he's just taking it further and further all the time. So the starting place is emotion code, which is what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. So I guess the point being, when I heard about this, the resistance to healing, what Linda is saying is that I had a belief running that in order to heal, you had to suffer through it all, essentially. That's essentially what I had running. I'm like, and I consciously had that running because I had a thought like, nothing's going to change in my life unless I get knocked over the head with an iron pan. Be careful what you wish for. Let me just say that, right? I more than got hit over the head with an iron pan. For sure, if you've listened to any of my other stuff, I mean, horrific stuff I've invited and created in my experience. But anyway.
So I just want to
yeah.
interject there, because you can say that that's a belief, right? But there's energy attached to that belief that is trapped within the body.
Right.
Okay. So that's where this goes deeper than other things, where your other modalities that clear beliefs.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. I see. So I wanted to share that. And so Linda and I worked through that last week, and it's been smooth sailing since. Because I can tell you, every time I've done this, that have some down days. I'm like, I can't. So what I would suggest is that if you're going to do this type of work, right at the beginning, it's easy enough to test, right, Linda, whether there's a belief or resistance or whatever beliefs are resistance in the way before you start the work. So it can be a lot easier. I mean, is that really necessary? Am I like unusually resistant?
I don't even look for beliefs. I just look for trapped emotions.
Right. Okay.
But sometimes you find the trapped emotions, or you can. So what we did is we zeroed in by asking a lot of questions and testing yes or no to these questions.
Yeah.
You know? And, so that's how you find. I'm just searching for trapped emotions. I'm just getting rid of all of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I feel like they're the underlying thing to the belief systems.
Yeah. So what's interesting when you're working with someone, which you can do remotely, right, Linda? There's no hands-on stuff here, you guys.
Yeah.
Can all be done remotely.
I'm only working remotely now.
Yeah. Linda and I work on Zoom, and there's nothing hidden. Like she's just following her chart. Dr. Nelson has mapped out the process to follow, and she's just going along. And you can watch when she goes weak. Show us, Linda, what a week would look like.
Yeah, so a yes. So I'm taking this finger, pushing down on this one, right? So if it's strong, that's a yes. If it's weak, it's a no. Yes.
Like it immediately goes weak. So when she gets hooked into this process, it's pretty simple. You can just watch her. You don't need to question it.
Look, I'll ask for myself, because I'm testing for myself. My name is Linda. Yeah. My name is Liz. No. Linda, I live in New York. Yeah. I live in California. No, I live in New York. So you'll get your yes and your no by muscle testing. And we touched on muscle testing a little bit before, and I just wanted to add to that it's a good, some people apply kinesiology. We're mentioning a lot of people don't understand what this is, muscle testing, or even that. But a lot of people have gone to chiropractors, and a lot of chiropractors will test with your arm, right? To see if something's weak. That's it right there. That's applied kinesiology. Your body's going to let him know this is strong, this is connected, or it's not. There's something wrong there. So it's really doing the same thing, and you could work in person with someone and do the whole arm thing. Or you can do many other methods and find it. And what Liz said is it's very hard to test for yourself. It is. You have to get really good at it to test it and be able to keep yourself separated from your own issue to test. But learn how to muscle test. You can muscle test anything throughout your whole day. And I was listening to Dr. Nelson talking before again, and he was saying how in other countries, because he's traveling the world teaching this, in other countries, they muscle test for everything. Is this good for me? Does my body need this right now? I'll muscle test which cream to put on my body. Do I want to use the aloe vera one or the coconut? I'm like, oh, coconut. Okay, good. Aloe vera, so you could, that gets you used to muscle testing because there's no resistance to that. When you're asking questions that don't have to do with, emotional things going on in your body, it's easier to start to trust your own ability to muscle test. That's like a good starting point with muscle testing.
Yeah. And again, I'll share a link to, you can see different types of muscle testing in the consciousness calibrations community. He shares a list of them along with the calibration of the consciousness of each of them. And they're all over the map. So anything above 200 is positively oriented and constructive. Higher doesn't mean better in consciousness. It's just a different energy. So I think that's, I think we've said enough about the emotion code. Well, there is a little bullet point here that'll be interesting. And I want to share my experience with it as well. Even though it can help with physical healing, and we're going to get into that in the body code. We're not going to get into that here. It does shift your relationships, for sure. The way you respond to others, the way others respond to you. And it may not be as dramatic as you might want. It's super subtle, and you've got to pay attention. You got to be someone who is aware of the shifts of energy, which I am, because I'm want to feel it, I want to see it, and I'm a teacher of consciousness. So I look at the chart, I'm like, oh, I'm just shifted into courage or acceptance or lovingness or whatever it is, the energy. I can feel. I asked for it, so I feel it. I'm like, oh my God, that was like pure courage I just felt right then, or that's just pure acceptance I just felt right then. So it's interesting that whether you get the exact result you want, you're shifting in significant ways in consciousness. And Linda and I did a test on this, which was super interesting because I wanted to know. And the question was, if you're familiar with Power versus Force and Dr. Hawkins' books on consciousness, he's a consciousness researcher. He calibrated that most human beings go up in consciousness maybe 5 points on the map. And those are logarithmic points, not like or arithmetic or geometric. I don't know what it is, but so you go up 10 to the fifth power over your lifetime, wherever you are on the map. So let's say you come in at 195, you maybe go up to 200 in this lifetime, which is still a quantum leap. When you expose yourself to Power versus Force, Dr. Hawkins' research into consciousness, or read any of his books, you elevate your consciousness by 35 points. That's huge. And whether Linda and I are accurate enough yet, I had a feeling before we even did it that if you are to remove your heart wall, because I understand what's going on there, we'll talk about it in the next video. I had a feeling that you could raise your consciousness significantly because you're taking down this wall of energy, right? This protective wall, essentially. And we calibrated based on the map of consciousness that you could raise your level of consciousness 50 points. Now, don't hold us to it because we're still practicing, but we don't really have an attachment. I don't. I just want to know the truth. Is it true or not? Can this help or not? And to go up 50 points, considering most people only do 5, is huge to remove the heart wall. And we'll talk about that further. But in general, for me, I feel so much better. And Linda, you've done it for yourself. Like,
yeah,
I noticed that my family that have come to visit me, who I haven't seen in a while, totally different dynamic, very enjoyable. No one's pushing buttons. Like, there's no buttons to be pushed anymore. It's just much easier. And if there is a button pushing, it's very light. It's like, oh, you can let it go. Like, there's none of that Velcro to hold you onto it anymore. The energy of that Velcroic attachment is gone.
Well, you know what?
That in and of itself.
I'll add that. And the nice thing is you have that awareness, right? So then you can see, oh, well, maybe there's something more I can do through emotion code to release whatever it is that brought up this little bit of a trigger today, right? So you become more of a gauge because, definitely you feel, most people say they feel light, like during a session, no matter what, they leave feeling lighter, right? But after doing this for a while, they find that they feel lighter in general in their life, or they might say happier or more at ease, just a general easier feeling in their everyday.
So when you start to, you got to wake up. The lesser part of you wants to keep complaining, but there's none of that. That energy is kind of gone. And if it's not, you got to come. You can get rid of it. Trust me, you can totally release it easily, and then just feel like even all this stuff or situations or issues that you have throughout your life that I spoke of at the beginning, right? For me, it's been weight stuff, financial stuff. Those are key ones. Even though they're not resolved 100%, I don't care. It doesn't matter anymore. It's like, oh, I don't care. I feel good. It doesn't, like, the attachment to this stuff you think you have to resolve is gone. And I can see it unraveling in many ways, right? You start to see it unraveling within relationships. You're like, oh, that's okay. Well, that's okay. Huge shifts there for me because I've created all kinds of situations I don't want.
And I think it also adds more to people as they're going on this awakening journey, because the more that you release all of that and the more you expand into a higher energy, the easier you start to notice when a little bump comes in. Whereas before, we're just like not even paying attention, not even conscious, and just living all the junk all the time, right?
Right.
So when you have that awareness and you start feeling that lighter feeling more of who you really are, you notice when some energy comes in that it's like pulling you off of who you are. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
well, maybe there's something there for me to look at. So and then you like, okay, let me hook up with Linda or somebody and let's talk, see if there's something here around this thing that just happened that kind of put me off. Yeah, okay. We find stuff, we clear it, and then boom, you're expanding even more.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to feel different.
Yeah.
To feel the change and to like, wow. And I'm realizing that there are plenty of people in this world that are of higher consciousness that feel this stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, this is what this is like. Like, wow, this is awesome. So, all right, we're going to wrap up this one because we have a whole bunch of other ones. So those of you listening or on the YouTube, we're going to do, the next one is going to be, we want to talk about the heart wall, which is kind of the first step into the emotion code and how significant it is, like we just shared. And if our calibrations are correct, which I hope they are, that's huge. And even if it's not, I mean, you're going to feel so much better. You're raising your consciousness because you just got rid of crap that's creating crap in the world. Like, you're a pool of energy. And when you let go of that stuff. So we're going to talk about the heart wall. Another huge thing is what you inherited. This is going to be a separate video. We're going to talk about inherited trapped emotions. This is kind of along the science of epigenetics. But epigenetics is really looking into the DNA and the formulation of cells. But guess what? That's energy.
Everything's
like I've always felt like you may have inherited a propensity for breast cancer, but you know what? What's the energy of it? Really? It's not the body, it's not the physical, it's the energy that's screwing it up. Like, it's messing with the cells, like, which you can identify through the emotion code and the body code.
I'm going to add a little body code teaser in there.
Yes, please.
Through the body code, there's another thing that is inherited called a miasm, which is inherited sickness memory, because you're talking about that in the body there right now. And you could inherit the energy of this sickness memory of an illness, whether the person recovered or not. They could have still been vibrating to that energy, and then it gets inherited and passed on, right? So it's mind-blowing the relief you can get from these things. And I've had my own experience with those miasms. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that's a body code.
There's so many aspects to the body code. We're going to cover all that because it's fascinating. And I've been charting every day. Every time I work with Linda, I'm taking notes. And then when you start doing it, you're like, there is no way on God's green earth you would have any notion to follow this path. And the fact that Dr. Nelson has mapped all this stuff out and done the work is huge. So that's all we're going to say about that, because that's a nice teaser. Thank you, Linda. We have more teasers in the body code for sure. So how can you get started with the body code? Let me tell you, first of all, the book. Linda, you want to show the book one more time? Sorry, Emotion Code.
Emotion
We're
code.
showing the Emotion Code. All right. Okay, so there's the Emotion Code. You can get the book. I'll have a link in the description below the video and the podcast. Dr. Bradley Nelson has a online course through the Shift Network that you can go to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/emotion code, and you can sign up for the introductory free webinar, and you can get to know Dr. Nelson there. Because if you're interested in the course, you have to go through that introductory one in order to get access to it. So you can get that at the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/emotion code. If you would like to work with Linda, which I love Linda, and I am a little bit biased, but she's good at this stuff. And I know my stuff while I'm watching her. I'm like, she knows what she's doing. I understand where she's coming from in consciousness, because I've known her for a while too. So you can go to the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/Linda Armstrong, and you can find her. It'll redirect it to her page in our network. And if you we don't have other emotion code practitioners yet, but when we do, you can find Linda and other practitioners at the mindbodyspiritnetwork.com/ECP. That's short for Emotion Code Practitioners. You'll find that there as well. So that's it. And next up, we're going to talk about the heart wall. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Linda. And we'll see you on the other side.
Can't wait.
Yes.